Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Forum Friday. On Forum Fridays, I invite Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hi, everybody.
I invite Mark on to join me so that we can understand a little bit more what's going on in the forums. Are we helping bakers?
Oh,
So,
yes.
Mark, it looks like we have a ton of activities and questions going on. So, I have four questions here I would like you to deep dive into this week.
Mm-hmm.
And my first question is about the Arabic caboose, the
Caboose.
flat
Yeah. Yeah.
caboose,
Yeah.
the
It's with a
flatbread that
Z. Yeah.
someone is complaining about getting too hard, too inflexible, too fast.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about shelf life.
Yes, in a way, and it's a very short shelf life. So here the issue seems to primarily be the number one problem seems to be the baking temperature and time. Caboose and these type of flatbreads, like similar to pitas and things, are baked
I
very,
was
very
just
hot,
going to
right?
ask, what is a caboose?
It's a Middle Eastern type of flatbread. They're very thin. They're super thin. So actually, a
Are
pita
they
would be
thinner than
thick by
pita?
yes, yeah.
Thinner than pita, but thicker than a tortilla.
Yes, that would be a good way of putting it, and bigger than a tortilla. Like they're like a so because in the Middle East and their traditions, they do not eat with utensils. They eat with their hands, and so
Mm.
these breads, these kabous, is how they gather the food. It's like a
Oh,
communal
so they like
baking.
peel it and
They
then they
peel
use
it
it.
and bake
Oh,
it,
so
grab it, and then yeah.
delicious.
So it's really yeah, and
So
it tastes
delicious.
really good. Yeah, um, and uh, and so it's very communal their thing. And so this person's trouble is that they're getting yellow, they're not staying white, and they're getting hard, right? So, but he's only baking at 180 C. And he's baking on baking pans. So it's too slow, the heat transfer and things. They need to be baked right on the hearth, on the stone, and like 300 degrees Celsius. So we're talking about 550 to 600, like a wood fired pizza oven. That's the
Yep.
idea, right?
Quick and fast.
Um,
Yeah.
and so you bake it really fast. He's also got a bunch of dough conditioners in there that he doesn't necessarily need. All he really needs is a little bit of amylase to help keep it soft. And the you know the
Maybe some oil, you
and
think?
he has some oil, sugar, and
Yeah.
salt in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's so there's already a conversation there that has been going on. There's already been about 10 different comments helping him out, and he's appreciative of everything that he is getting. And
That's
it's
what
the
I love
form in
about the
action.
professionals, man.
Yep.
Everyone's chipping in. I mean, it took us over a year to get here, Mark, but we got here. I'm so
Oh
proud of
yeah,
everyone.
it's fantastic. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
fun to go in. I mean, we're almost. I think we're just over 1,200 now. So
Oh,
we're well on our
wow.
way to 2,000, right?
That's
And
really good.
it's not just the number of members; they are active. I mean, I'm doing welcome notes multiple times a day to as new members join. And
That's
because
great.
Facebook will give it to me in batches most of the time.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I don't even get much of a chance to contribute to many of the conversations because
Dang.
so many of the members are already doing such a fantastic job,
I
which is
know.
exactly what we wanted, right? So it's been
Yeah,
really
this
good.
is so
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks
No,
for your
thank you.
work on that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I enjoy it. Yeah, very much.
Yeah, that's great. So, next question up I wanted to ask you is about the use of baking soda and whether baking soda cuts baking time. What has the discussion been on there?
Well, there's a number of different things here in understanding exactly what the again the person is trying to accomplish. So there are two different ways of looking at it. If you increase the baking soda to get more browning, then you will not have to bake as long to achieve the browning. But to achieve a baked product in terms of doneness, like if you want to make sure you get to your 180 to 200 C in the internal temperature, it'll still take the same amount of time. Okay.
Oh.
That won't change. What changes is how much it browns. Okay. So the problem often is with sugar reduced cookies, where you're taking half or more of the sugar out. That is where you get a lot of your caramelization reaction. So if you don't have something else to substitute that through Maillard browning, like eggs or something like that, or other proteins, then baking soda can help with that. Because it's alkaline type of chemistry will change the proteins and it causes things to brown quicker, right? So actually, if you put way too much baking soda, they even go brown on the inside, right? So
I've tried that before.
yes, that's happened, right? So
And if you want to
that's
sabotage somebody's experiment, that's what you
yeah.
do.
And then of course if you put way too much in, it'll taste very salty because of the sodium portion of the baking soda.
Yeah.
And some people like myself are very sensitive to baking soda.
Oh, really?
I get a burning sensation on my palate when
Oh,
there's too much
no.
soda. So it's so there's if people who don't like it, they will tell you right away, ooh, it's burning. I don't like it. Yeah,
Oh,
and
wow.
not burning like hot, but sort of like we refer to it as a burning sensation
Like
because
a
it
stinging
like a
sensation?
stinging sensation.
Yeah,
It's
like
because of the
sharp
alkali.
and
Yeah,
then,
yeah,
yeah.
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 And
Okay. I never knew that.
yes, yep.
Wow.
And because baking
Okay.
soda is often used in excess in chocolate cakes, in like devil's food
Oh,
cakes,
yes, that's
because
true.
it's another way of alkalizing the cocoa powder further to get a
Right.
darker
So
color.
does it affect you the same way when you eat like Dutch chocolate cake or something like that?
Yes, but
Devil's
Dutch chocolate
cakes.
cake that use cheap cocoa powders and try to make them browner with baking soda, I can taste it.
You can fool us, but you can't fool Mark.
Yeah. And yeah, and everybody is different. Like other things like cinnamon, I have trouble tasting cinnamon. So I know you don't like cinnamon, right? But
I can
so
taste cinnamon in like 5 ppm, you
yes,
know?
yeah, I like to put lots of cinnamon in.
Yeah. All right. So we had another question that discusses laminated products. And the question is how and why the laminated product hardens so fast? Like
Yeah,
stay.
it's that conversation is sort of just getting going. It's starting. Trying to get a little more clarification from the original poster. So this seems to be with a croissant and puff pastry, and is thinking that with breads to get good lift, you need a strong flour, which is the wrong thought process for things for puff pastry and croissants.
Correct.
You need something that is a little lower protein, usually in the 9 to 11% range. And that's why, like in Europe, where we make a lot of croissants, is just your typical 10% protein flour that they use. In North America, we will usually use an all-purpose flour and or lean it out a little bit with some pastry flour to get the strength down so that it extends nicely, and this won't make it so hard. The other thing is time and temperature. Making sure you're baking hot enough and not too long. With croissants, usually about 375 Fahrenheit. With puff pastry prefers a two-stage bake. 425 to start, really hot to get lots of that steam because there's no yeast or anything there. It's just steam making it rise. But then if you get brown on the outside and pull the puff out of the oven, it tends to be really wet and sticky and like it's cooked but not dried out enough, right? So
Right.
and that can get very hard. So puff pastry usually likes to be baked 425 for the first 1/3 of the bake, something like that, and then bake it out at 350 to dry it out so it's nice and golden all the way through, and it'll be nice and light and crisp that way.
That's true. I mean, it's just one of those things where you started the wrong product in the first place.
Yeah.
Once you started the wrong ingredient, I mean, it just goes downhill from there. You know, like
Yeah.
what you said.
You
I mean, it's just started the right product and use the right process to achieve it.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you start with the wrong product, all the other processing changes you do, they can't fix it. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great advice, Mark, because you have a ton of experience in laminated products. Glad
Yeah.
to have you. Glad to have your advice in that one.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I have
One of my
one more
one of my
question.
favorites. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have one more question, and that's concerning um how to make crispier wafers. So where do
Well,
you start? Where do you start in thinking, how do I make crispier wafers and cookies or crackers?
yeah, there's a few different ways and means. Wafers tend to be almost more like what we call a cookie or a biscuit. So they tend to have sugar in them. So if you increase the sugar, you'll get more glassing, and then you can get more crispness that way.
So
If you're
so wait, before you go on, we need to talk about glassing because a lot of bakers don't understand that. Let's go a little bit into that detail. If you're interested in learning more about glassing and glass transition temperature, that is where you need to go. Okay, so any kind of process or formula change needs to get to a glass transition temperature that
yes,
creates the same characteristics as sugar, you know, caramel sugar. So we
yeah,
have this glass transition topic on Wikipedia. So if you haven't read it already, go read it. All right,
yes,
then you
yeah,
will know what Mark is talking about. So if any kind of formula that I ever work with has the lack of crisp, lack of crunch, lack of the tenacity I'm looking for, it's mostly to do with glass transition temperatures.
hmm
So, Mark, what can they do to improve glass transition temperatures? I mean, the glass property or the glassing.
Well, if you have enough sugar, is it comes back to again time and temperature, making sure that you're baking at the right temperature and for the correct amount of time to get also the evaporation to happen. So for the glass transition, it is first of all is getting the heat in to get that sugar melted. So you are breaking down the crystallization is gone and it's completely melted. And then when it starts to reform, it doesn't form small individual crystals. It forms a network that to us would look like a sheet of glass, right? I always remember, when I first learned about this, and I didn't understand the chemistry of it. I will gladly, but it was one of
I'll
these,
gladly have
yeah,
a coffee date with anyone who wants to talk about
yeah.
glass
But
transition temperature.
I still remember I was 16 years old, and my chef was telling me about how at a pastry shop where he worked that they worked together with the theater, and in those days they didn't have all the modern technology we have now, and they used to make the glass windows for the theater for the actors to be able to break. So they had to make nice sheets of glass. So that's where I learned about melting the sugar to the right point and the right amount of evaporation so that it will glass. You evaporate too much water, it'll recrystallize again and turn into crystals. So it's that balancing act, right? When you're reducing sugar in something like a wafer, then it comes to, well, what else can I do to create this type of glassing network, right? Sometimes it's starches like wheat starch or cornstarch. Tapioca and potato starch don't work very well for this because they trap too much moisture. And the other thing is that I've seen a lot of success with sugar reduced cookies and wafers is maltodextrins. Maltodextrins will melt in a similar fashion to sugar. And again, in the right time and temperature process, you will get really nice and crisp cookies and wafers. They become a little more fragile. They break easier, but they are very, very crisp, almost hard. Right. When it comes to crackers, there it is very much time and temperature, and it's the evaporation process because crackers usually go through 4 different oven stages of heating, drying, and drying. to get them nice and crisp. So there's different things. So some of it is formula related, and time and temperature becomes a big part of it in the end as well.
Right. So two things that I would like to add to that is fat reduces glass transition temperatures.
Yes.
And water, right? If you're going to use this two in your formula, then these are going to affect the glass transition temperature. You really have to bake out the water, like Mark said. Okay. One thing that I have studied extensively in my PhD dissertation is protein and the glass transitions of protein. So basically, better quality proteins have higher glass transition temperature. So any kind of protein you add in terms of having the similar glass as gluten is going to encourage the crisp.
Yep.
Okay. So without going down the rabbit hole, which protein is same to gluten and all that stuff, just understand that the basic principle in understanding crispness is understanding the glass transition. And if you perfect the glass transition understanding, I think you will perfect the crisping of anything baked good. Even baked bars, cereal bars, even cereals. Glass transition is so important in cereals because the crunch, right? So
that makes perfect sense because most the way I've always envisioned like albumin and proteins like from egg white and from pulses and things like that is that they're like a coil, right? Or like not quite like a DNA coil, but it just looks like a spring almost, right? Whereas gluten proteins are called beta sheet proteins, and they form flat sort of networks, right? They can crystallize. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. And one more thing before we go, Mark, can you guess which protein has the highest crisp? In my studies, I found out. Can you guess?
Which protein? No, I can't get. I mean, I would have thought maybe
collagen.
Gluten. Collagen.
Fried collagen. It's in pork skins.
Yes.
That is the highest crisp because its glass transition temperature is so high. Right. So I'm not advocating for anyone to use pork collagen in baked goods. Okay, but I'm just saying an example.
And in pastry baking, they may not realize they are using it because most gelatin is made from pork. So
yeah, that's true. Well, it's time to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Mark, for running the forums every month. And
absolutely,
it's just been an amazing May for everyone. And if you have any more questions you want the group to answer, go to our Facebook page, Baking Industry Professionals. That's where all the action's at. Okay.
And if you'd like to advertise with Bakerpedia, drop us a line. Send an email
at bakerpedia.com. Yeah.
Yep. And because we don't want to have spamming in the forums. We want the support, but please don't spam the forums.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.